Alrighty, so as promised, today I am going to do the video talk about Sporting KC and their 10 game winless run. And what's kind of interesting about this winless run is that this is now the second consecutive year that we saw Sporting KC at one point of the season go on a stretch where they have gone 10 games without a win. Obviously, we know what happened last year, and most famously, they become the team with the longest winless run to start the season in MLS history. We know that 0-3-7 start to the season and how, it looked pretty much doom and gloom from the get go, but somehow, in some way, they went on an incredible run in May. And really, after they end that streak, and also getting most of their players back last season, they went on an incredible run to a point where they made it to the playoffs. Now, the question is, can they do it again this season? That is definitely going to be interesting to see. And I would say that, when you look at this 10-game winless run compared to what we saw last season, I feel like this 10-game winless runs is even more painful than what we saw last year. And that there's even more concern. The fact that it's going to be even harder to maybe replicate it compared to last season, because as I said, last season, really the big part of that 10-game winless run to start the season is because they were battling with a lot in injury and they didn't have a lot of their start player last season. This year they do, and that unless if they do something drastic in the transfer window and just completely do a makeover, or as many Sporting KC fans been wanted Peter Vermees to be fired since day one of this season. Yeah, it doesn't look like this is going to be a year where Sporting KC is going to recover from a 10-game winless tailspin like they did last season. Now, it's important to note their current record is 2-5-9, and they currently have 11 points. They're currently bottom of the Western Conference right now. They're tied with the San Jose Earthquakes with the same amount of points, but the Quakes does have more wins, and that, of course, is the tiebreaker. They scored 24 goals this season. Goal scoring has not been a problem, at least in the last couple of games for Sporting KC. Goal scoring has been pretty strong for Sporting KC. It's the defense that is a problem. And how many times have I talked about that with Sporting KC? That's been what this team has been, and that's been kind of what Peter Vermeer's team has looked like for not just this year, but really for the past 5 or 6 seasons. This has always been a team for the past 5 or 6 seasons that has strong attack, but their defense basically let them down. And mind you, they have one of the best goalkeeper in the league in Tim Melia. Tim Melia has been consistently one of the best in the league, and yet he can't simply just bail out this back line that you could argue is among the worst in the league this season, and really for the past 5 or 6 years or so. And they've given up 31 goals with a goal differential of -7. Now, looking at their last win that Sporting KC had, it's hard to believe, but their last win was all the way back in March. It was against Toronto FC. It was on the road too, and this was considered a good win too because Toronto, they got off to a decent start to the season, but Sporting KC going on the road and pull off a big victory here. You got Remy Voltaire, Davis, and Vargas. Those three guys scoring in the second half to make it 3-0. Osorio did add one to make it 3-1 in this one and the clean sheet at that point. But that was an impressive victory for Sporting KC, and up to that point, they were still doing relatively well. And then we saw what happened in the game against the Portland Timbers. And honestly, I think this game pretty much just sums up of what we're about to see throughout this winless run. The story of this winless run is really just the amount of blown leads that they have suffered for time and time again from winning position. I mean, I think this season they lead the league in terms of the most draw points out of any teams in a winning position. And as we have seen for the past couple of years, when teams that leads the league in terms of dropping points from winning position, they don't make the playoffs more often or not. And again, this game was kind of the game that really was a foreshadow of all the pain that Sporting KC fans has to suffer because they were 3-0 up in this game. William Agata got the first goal. He also got the second goal right before or actually he got the third goal. Rosario actually scored the second goal, and Sporting KC were 3-0 up against the struggling Timber side. And it could have been 4-0 up in this game too because Agata actually had a chance to complete his hat trick, and he missed the penalty, and that was a huge turning point to the game because with that missed penalty, immediately on the other end, Evander would buries a penalty, Mora would get within one, And then the collapse was complete in the 81st minute when Eric Miller ties the game up at 3 apiece. And again, this is just going to be a foreshadow of all these blown leads and all these games where Sporting KC led at one point, only for them to draw points or even lose games as we're about to see. Because in the very next game, where they of course play against Inter Miami, and obviously this was a big occasion because this was not play at Children's Mercy Park. This was play at Arrowhead, where the Chiefs, of course, played. They had a big crowd for this one, and Sporting KC at least early on looked like they showed up because Eric Tommy fires them to lead 1-0 in this game. It was a rocket of a goal. Though Gomez did tie the game up at 1 apiece, and then Messi, of course, give what a lot of those fans there wanted to see of him scoring a goal. But then Eric Tommy ties the game up with another rocket of a goal, and you're just thinking momentum maybe is with Inter Miami, right? Or with Sporting KC, right? Nope. Instead, they give up a goal late. It's Luis Suarez that gave up, or the one that scored the goal for Inter Miami, and the one that Sporting KC gave up to. And really, looking back at that goal, it was such a preventable goal. It was just bad turnover on their end that kind of caused the goal, and that's kind of also a theme we've seen with the Sporting KC defense so many times that this team has turned the ball over in bad spot, and the opposition just capitalize it because that's how of course it goes. Now in the very next game in the 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 game where they play against the rival St. Louis. I almost said it's a Midwest derby, but obviously that's gonna be insult to some of these Midwestern team in MLS. But certainly this was a game where not only it was entertaining, but once again another game where they were on the verge of getting a massive 3 points, and then they gave up a late goal. So they did score first with Polito scoring to make it 1-0. Then Joe Claus and Pompeo actually give St. Louis the lead. But then Daniel Showery and Eric Tommy turned this around. And again, momentum with Sporting KC. You think that Sporting KC would ride this out with the way that they not only retake the lead, but again, look like they have the momentum. And then Thomas Totland scored in the second minute of stoppage time. And again, just this is now three straight game that Sporting KC had giving up goals in the last 20 minutes of the game, and really the second time in the last three games that they have giving up goals in the last 10 minutes of the game to blow a lead there. Now, in the very next game against Minnesota, the good news for Sporting KC is that they didn't blow a lead in this game. I mean, in order to blow a lead, you need to have a lead, and insert that meme of the guy basically pointing his head like that, because yeah, they were 2-0 down against Minnesota in this one. They went down just 2 minutes into this game with Michael Boxhall scoring and then Olo Ashrai scoring in the 25th minute to make it 2-0. Polito did get one back, and I will say this: as a Minnesota fan, I was very nervous about near the end of this game. I mean, yeah, Sporting KC really pushed hard to trying to get the equalizer, but they weren't able to do so. So yeah, it's another loss. Now it's now 4 games without a win up to this point, and it's about to be 5 games because remember how this is a teams that likes to give up late goals. Yep, it came back against RSL. And I get that, playing on the road against right now the best team in the West and one of the best team in the league. Losing to them isn't really the bit of a bad thing. But you got to remember, this was back when RSL was still kind of is hovering around there. Near the top 4 spot. They weren't really considered to be really the force of the Western Conference as what we have seen. And it looked like Sporting KC might have just got a big 0-0 draw, and then Chicho Arango happens. So yeah, he scored in the 81st minute. Another game where Sporting KC have given up a goal in the last 10 minutes. That's now 3 out of the last 5 games that they have given up a goal in the last 10 minutes to either drop points or or not even getting a single point and lose the game. And now we continue even into the next game against the Houston Dynamo. So after Hector Herrera scored in the 31st minute, Daniel Showery did get the equalizer. But guess what? Aliu would score the goal in the 78th minute. And while it wasn't really the last 10 minutes, if you want to say the last 15 minutes or even the last 20 minutes or so, that's now 4 out of the last 6 games that Sporting KC has give up a late goal to either lose or draw a game. Now, in the very next game against Austin, now the good news for Sporting KC is that they didn't, of course, blown a lead in this game. And notice how I said that it's good news the fact that Sporting KC didn't did that, because that feels like it was like Groundhog Day every single game at this point of this bad 10 game winless run, that it looked like they were on verge of collapsing once again. Well, there were some games that they didn't actually collapse, and those games were just mainly because they never had the lead. So in this game, it was Russell that actually got the lead in this one. I mean, you could also say this might be a game you could say that it count as them dropping point from winning position, that because they had the lead, but it quickly disappeared when O'Brien scored a brace within 11 minutes. Driussi then made it 3-1. Jake Davis did score an amazing goal in the 63rd minute, but that was kind of forgotten because Austin was able to hold on in this game. And yeah, up to this point, the winless run was now at 7 game, and then it would reach 8 games against the Portland Timbers. And I would say that this is kind of a game that in my preview I said, who's going to be the team that between both of these teams that likes to choke Lee away? Who's going to be the one that is going to give up a late goal? Because you just kind of had a sense that it's inevitable that somebody's going to give up a late goal in this one. And unfortunately for Sporting KC fans, it would be them, because after Felipe Mora scores in the 51st minute and then Memo Rodriguez ties it up, Evander would get the winner in the 79th minute. So now what's that? One, two, three, four, five, six. That's now 6 out of the last 8 games. They have given up a goal in the last 15 minutes to either drop points or lose in the game. And again, when you see this pattern, and I think Sporting KC fans probably have heard this before, biggest reason why this team is giving up so many goals late in the game is because Peter Vermees just doesn't make sub. This has been one of the biggest issue with Peter Vermees, and it's kind of the naivety and the stubbornness of Peter Vermees that maybe started to finally got him where he likes to keep his starter, and he's too naive to make sub before. In fact, I even at times compare him to Adrian Heath last season, where as a Minnesota fan, I know how frustrated it can be to see Adrian Heath also being very naive and being very stubborn to make subs. But Peter and Mees basically takes it to another level. There's been so many games where he made like just like one sub or doesn't even make a sub whatsoever, and it's no wonder why when you don't make subs and you keep putting your team playing in so many of these games and pretty much playing almost to the full 90 minutes, it's gonna wear down on you, and especially when you face against opposition that decided to make subs and decided to bring fresh leg. It is no wonder why this team is collapsing late, because most of these goals that we see late in the game, and usually when you see goals that can see late in the game, it has something to do with the fatigueness that like that might be the reason why they gave up a lot of goals. I mean, there also could be the mental part of it, where the mental part of this is the fact that because Sporting KC have given up so many late goals, that it just gets to players that, oh boy, here we go again as we head into the last 15 minutes, and before you know it, they give up another goal, and that is a bad trend to go with, and it's almost kind of like a losing kind of trend. Like when you lose so many games, it started becoming a trend, and it's just almost impossible to try to snap out of it. Now, in the very next game against the Vancouver Whitecaps, guess what? They did give up a late goal once again, though this is a game where they actually never had the lead. It was Ryan Goal scoring the 39th and 82nd minute. Johnny's did get one back to make it interesting. And another thing that's also interesting to see doing this 10-game winless run for Sporting KC, there's no point at any of these games where they actually come back and was able to salvage a point. That's another thing that is got to be very frustrating, and kind of is the reason why this has just been an ugly 10-game winless run. That there's no game you can say that, well, we were staring down the jaws of defeat, but we rescue ourselves a draw. All these games or at least most of these games are really just Sporting KC staring at the jar of victory, and then it basically snatch out of them, because again, giving up late goals late in the game, that is just kind of the sidekick of this team doing this winless run. And then on the last game against Minnesota, I would argue this was probably the worst game that Sporting KC had. I mean, they look like a team that just mentally uh uh exhausted. They're kind of like the team where I remember last year when they had that 10-game winless run, like right after the game when Johnny Russell did a post game interview after the 10 game winless run. That's kind of like and how his face is kind of look absolutely exhausted, look mentally taxed. That's what Sporting KC is right now because in this game against Minnesota, they gave up an early goal. Well, not really an early goal, but a first half goal to Olo Ashai. Then Lud and Ariaga would score to make it 3-0. Russell did get one back, but yeah, by then it was way too late there, and that's where we are right now, Sporting KC with this 10 game winless run. Now there is good news for Sporting KC because guess who they play next in the next game that they play. Oh yeah, that's right. They are playing against the Seattle Sounders. And what's kind of interesting thing is that last year during that 10 game winless run, guess who was the team that they broke that 10 game winless run? Yeah, it's the Seattle Sounders. So they're looking to try to do the same thing. And again, I apologize to Seattle Sounders and in advance because as I made the video about Atlanta United 9 game winless run, and immediately that winless run came to an end after they beat Inter Miami. Feeling probably this is going to be the same case again, and that you could also argue that there could be a good chance that Sporting KC could break this stretch because Seattle, they've been kind of mediocre at least this season, and I know this is a game that is at home, and at home has been one of the plays where no longer the Children Mercy Park is the blue hell of MLS. It's more like the blue hell of Sporting KC fandom because again, most of these time when they blow leads, we're all coming at home in this winless run. Then they go on the road to play against the Galaxy. That's gonna be tough, and it gets even more tougher with them have to play against the team that's at the top of the Western Conference in RSL, and not to mention one of the best road team in the league, and a team that just refused to lose on the road, even though you thought that you lost to them. And then they play against the defending MLS Cup champion on the road against Columbus, and then they finish off in these next 5 games by playing against Austin FC again. So again, I do think that the next game is winnable, and especially again could be deja vu over again, where they use Seattle as a way to end this winless run, and then they go on a pretty good run to get themselves back into playoff position. But it is very hard to say that of course, is the case. The talent is definitely there for this team. I mean, when you look at the talent on paper, it's definitely there. It is definitely a team that could make it to the playoffs, but because of just the really the story of this 10 game winless run with the amount of leads that they have blown, and just the mentality level that is all wrong with this team heading into the last 15 minutes, and knowing that it's inevitable that they're going to blow another lead and eventually either lose or draw a game even though they had a chance to get all 3 points. That's where I think Sporting KC fans are very concerned that they can't replicate what they did last season. And yeah, we'll see whether or not whether they can do so, and also we'll see whether or not if Peter Ramirez is going to stick around. I do think he's going to stick around with this team, as much as I know Sporting KC fans don't want to see it. Uh, I just think that with the way that it feels like it's going to it's going to take a lot for this front office to eventually fire Peter Ramirez. I mean, Peter Ramirez right now is the longest active head coach in MLS. He's been the the head coach of Sporting KC since 2009. So when you have that much of loyalty, and that we had seen before where teams decided to eventually fire their long-term head coach, but it does take time, and it's almost at times maybe a little too late for them to do so because of that loyalty kind of thing, and it feels like the front office are reluctant to let go of someone that they trust for so long. That's kind of the reason why I think as much as a lot of Sporting KC fans want Peter Remis to be gone, it's probably not going to happen unless this team just completely bottoms out, and that the Sporting KC fan base just have no choice but say, yeah, maybe this is kind of the time to 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 call it a quit for Peter Vermees as the head coach of the Sporting KC side. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and let me know in the comments below that heading into this next 5 games, which is the game that Sporting KC can end their winless run. It could be as soon as the next game, like I said. It could be deja vu all over again, where they end their 10 game winless run last year on the road against Seattle, and they could do it again this year playing at home against the Seattle Sounders. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.